that luxury is necessarily going to completely plummet like some of these other Australian retailers, because they are ensuring they stay relevant to younger generations, and I think that's what will keep them afloat for now. Brands are about making a quick buck, and they're not willing to invest the time into creating this strong brand identity anymore, maybe like they used to. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Jess. So I know there's always been a lot of chatter about the end of luxury. Luxury is not doing as well as it did, you know, during the pandemic. Everyone was going crazy for the handbags, and now everyone is all about experiences, and honestly, this may be the case. However, I do feel like other retail businesses are struggling even more, and I came across an article from news.com.au called "Owed 250 million, Australia's giant retail collapse." And I've noticed that, you know, through my career of working in retail for probably over 10 years, how stores have, you know, been around for a few years and then shut down, you know, from when my friends working in other stores and then having to move store. And, you know, it is a very volatile environment, I would say, keeping a business afloat in retail. The article goes through different iconic Australian brands which have now had to shut their doors after many years. And I wanted to go through with you guys how we can draw comparisons between, I guess, the demise of these retail stores compared to what we're seeing in luxury right now. Now, there's been so many changes in luxury. I think there's been a huge trend towards experiences, saving money, thinking about your future more, and it's almost become, I would say, less novelty to unbox things and collect as much as we used to. Although I will say, I don't think that people are necessarily stopped spending money. In fact, I've seen a huge trend towards still collecting things like pop marts. Even Pokemon cards have had a second boom. Apparently there's this new pack that is completely sold out and they're having another boom. So I do think that people are still inclined to collect things. However, I do think that the trend towards handbags have changed a little bit. Over the years, different retail stores in Australia have closed, and maybe you've experienced this as well in the US. Maybe there were brands that you used to shop from when you were younger and now they don't exist. For example, in Australia, there was Rivers, Rockman's, Crossroads, Autograph, Miller's, and I think all these stores I'm talking about, if you're Australian, you'll probably be familiar with them. They're all targeting an age bracket that perhaps is in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And I think that the reason why these particular brands perhaps couldn't survive is because younger people weren't buying them, and perhaps their initial clientele, so customers who would shop with them 20 years ago, perhaps are not buying as many clothes as they used to because they're older now, you know, they're retired, they're settling down, or they're in a home or something. So perhaps this is why these kind of brands couldn't survive, because I think their target audience perhaps grew out of it, or, you know, they weren't targeting younger people for the next generation. So after, you know, 10 years or so, these brands have died out. Maybe people who are in their 40s and 50s now are looking more to Zara, perhaps they're looking more to H&M even, or yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it could be, you guys. Maybe even the younger generation is just going for cheaper stuff as well, so that, you know, they're not going to necessarily grow up and shop at Noni B anymore. I don't know what it is about this, but what I have noticed is that comparing these brands to perhaps luxury brands do target a really young audience. They target, I would say, people in their teens and 20s. If you look at the ambassadors they use, you know, Jennie from Blackpink, Zendaya, you know, who else? Dua Lipa. These are pop stars that really appeal, or they're famous. Zendaya's not a pop star, she's an actress, but, you know, they appeal to Gen Z, is it? Yeah, the generation before millennials. So they've planted that seed at a young age. So, you know, people who are in their 20s now, in 10 years, they might aspire to shop from Louis Vuitton at least, or even in 20 years, because they might remember that ad campaign with Zendaya. Whereas, you know, Katie's and Noni B, they're not targeting a younger audience. They're really just targeting that older market, whereby they're not shopping here anymore. Now, this may be the same even at Louis Vuitton, you guys. I think that people who have shopped at Louis Vuitton for over 30 years may have noticed a shift in quality. right? But I don't think that that necessarily matters anymore because the next generation may not really notice or care about that as much, and they're more buying into the idea of the brand. And I think it goes for fast fashion as well. When I was younger, like in the 90s, we had, a few Australian brands, and I remember my mum, she'd buy clothes and they were great quality, and things were just made better, in the 90s and the 80s and before then as well. And I spoke about before how my mum used to work at a shoe shop where they would make a last and make shoes to fit your foot exactly. And there was more of an eye for quality, and things were made in Australia. And as time has gone by, I noticed, when I was in my 20s, more of these international brands come to Australia, fast fashion like Topshop, Zara and H&M, which were not really a thing, when I was 10 years old or something. But kids now are growing up with really fast fashion and really poor quality compared to probably generations before. I mean, I'm talking Shein, I'm talking Temu, all those really cheap clothing, cheap brands. And so quality, people might not necessarily have the same eye for quality as well, I think, as they may have if you are a little bit older, because you wouldn't have noticed the difference and this different lack of quality now that maybe these designer brands are having. So I think that's also why designer brands can get away with poorer quality as time goes by, because the younger generation are kind of used to that. But let me know what you think as well, guys, because I'm just thinking, where did these brands go wrong? And I think it's because they're not appealing to a younger market, and their usual clientele is not there anymore. What else is there? There's plenty of retail stores that are shut down in Australia. You got Video Easy. I guess videos not really relevant as much as they used to be. I mean, they could have a resurgence, guys, like anything. Records are very collectible. I would say now it's the time to buy videos at the op shop. You never know, they might be worth a lot, in 20 years when people are striving to collect video, right? It's a bit like that. Same with Sanity, CDs. That's not really as relevant anymore in Australia, so that company died out. Yeah, it's crazy. Even Borders, used to be huge in Australia, and perhaps people are not buying as many books these days either. Toys R Us, and the list goes on. And I would say a lot of it has got to do with online as well, as why a lot of these Australian retailers are dying out. But it's also got to do with, I think, the introduction of very, very cheap fashion. And then, maybe people either aspire to buy very cheap fashion or very expensive fashion, which is marketed in a way that appeals to younger generations. And I think that, as someone who is 30 years old, I'm kind of in that generation in the middle where maybe I also experienced a time in luxury that was a little bit different. I could kind of see how things changed in the last 5 years. But I also I don't think that luxury is necessarily going to completely plummet like some of these other Australian retailers, because they are ensuring they stay relevant to younger generations. And I think that's what will keep them afloat for now. However, I do feel like the next 5 years or so are not going to be as prosperous as they were the years before, because there has been a huge shift in creative directors. We don't really know what's happened. I mean, Gucci Sabato De Sarno has just left, and he really didn't get a chance to, I think, make his mark on Gucci. And actually, I really liked his designs at Gucci, so I feel like that's a real shame. But these days, I guess, brands are about making a quick buck, and they're not willing to invest the time into creating this strong brand identity anymore. Maybe like they used to. Things are fast now. They need quick money, and they need it now. And it's just about, creating a hot collection pretty much every 2 weeks, it seems, especially in the case of Louis Vuitton. So guys, how do you think luxury is going to survive in another 10 years? Are we going to see some of these luxury houses maybe become less relevant? And, similarly to some of these Australian retail stores, I wouldn't be surprised, but I guess a lot of them have already lasted, over 100 years, so it's hard to really imagine, right? So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed my video today and my random ramblings. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys really soon. Bye!